Welcome back to the deep dive. If you've been listening to us for a while, you know we usually like to peel back the layers of a topic, maybe overturn a few stones to see what's crawling underneath. But today we aren't just overturning stones. We're basically taking a sledgehammer to the foundation of the house.
That is putting it mildly. I mean, we aren't just looking at cracks in the drywall here. We're looking at the structural integrity of the entire building.
Yeah, we are tackling a subject that, honestly, a lot of people are terrified to discuss above a whisper in the corporate break room. We're talking about the red pill. We're talking about that gnawing gut-level feeling that a lot of men have that something in the modern world isn't just, changing naturally, but is actually fundamentally broken. Or, if you believe our source material today, actively engineered against them.
It's a heavy topic. We are looking at the architecture of society itself. Law, education, family, media. We're asking the question, is the game rigged? And if it is, who rigged it, when did they do it, and why?
Right. And to answer that, we are diving deep, and I mean deep, into a book that describes itself as a declaration of war. It's an ebook titled Feminist Damnation, A Special Place in Hell for Feminists by Conrad Reicher. Now, I have to say, just from that title alone, this isn't going to be a polite, middle-of-the-road, let's all get along kind of discussion, is it?
No, absolutely not. And Riker is very upfront about that. He frames this book as an autopsy. He's dissecting a system he claims is dead, or rather a system that is killing its host. He argues that this isn't some self-help book for sad men who can't get a date. He says it's a book that frankly shouldn't exist in the current climate, and it's designed to dismantle what he calls the lies of the modern gender narrative.
So our mission for this deep dive is to trace the history of these institutions before and after their capture by feminist and Marxist ideologies. This is for the learner out there who suspects the deck is stacked but just doesn't have the blueprints to prove it yet.
Exactly. We're going to walk through the evidence he presents, step by step, keeping in mind that our goal is just to lay out what the book is arguing.
But before we get into the heavy-hitting data, and there is an absolute mountain of data here, I want to be clear. If you like what we're doing here, if you want these unauthorized, unfiltered conversations to keep happening, you need to like and subscribe to the deep dive right now. It actually helps us keep the lights on and keeps the algorithm from burying us.
And more importantly, if the things we discussed today resonate with you, if you feel that shock of recognition, the author Conrad Reicher is very clear. You need to go to Amazon Kindle or Google Playbooks right now and buy Feminist Damnation.
Yeah, go get it. And for the raw daily updates that probably can't even make it into a published book due to censors, you should follow at Conrad Reicher on Substack. That's where his real-time analysis is happening. Okay, so let's get into it. I was reading through the source material, and I have to say the data points in here are, well, they're jarring. We hear about the gender gap all the time, but usually it's framed as women being the victims.
That's the core premise of Section 1 of the book, which he calls the Great Lie and the Marriage Plantation. Reicher's argument is that feminism was never actually about equality. That was just the sales pitch. That was a brochure. He argues it was always about supremacy, and he introduces the concept of the gynocracy.
The gynocracy. Let's unpack that term before we go any further, because it sounds like something out of a sci-fi novel. What does he actually mean by that?
He describes it as a socio-political system that is embedded deep in law and culture, where men are effectively second-class citizens. But, and this is the key to his argument, it's masked by a pervasive narrative of female victimhood.
Right, so it's hidden in plain sight.
Exactly. It's the idea that society is structured to extract value from men, their labor, their protection, their taxes, their resources, all while systematically denying them authority, respect, or even basic due process.
So all the responsibility, none of the authority. That sounds like a recipe for massive resentment.
It is. And the centerpiece of this extraction mechanism, according to Reicher, is what he calls the marriage plantation.
Man, that is a brutal term, the marriage plantation. I mean, it implies slavery. It implies you are working the land for someone else's benefit, and you have no actual ownership.
It does, and he uses it intentionally to describe the legal reality of marriage for men in the West today. He argues that marriage has evolved from a partnership into a trap. And he backs this up with hard numbers. Like, we often hear about how women are oppressed in relationships, but Reicher points to the divorce rates. Financial settlements favor women 90% of the time.
90%. That seems statistically impossible if the courts were truly neutral. I mean, if it were a coin flip, it would be 50-50. Even with the whole wage gap myth, it should be closer to maybe 60-40.
If it were neutral, yes. But 90% implies a systemic directive. It implies that the default setting of the legal system is basically just transfer assets to the woman. And here is the kicker on the oppression narrative. Men initiate only 10% of divorces, yet they pay 73% of the legal fees.
Wait, hold on. Let me get this straight. So men are the ones largely trying to stay in the marriage, or at least they aren't the ones filing the paperwork to leave, but they are the ones footing the bill for the dissolution of their own family.
Riker calls it extortion with a wedding ring. Think about it from a contract law perspective. If you and I start a business, and I decide to quit because I'm unhappy or I need to find myself, I don't usually get to keep the building, the assets, the intellectual property, and force you to pay me a salary for the next 10 years.
No, you'd get laughed out of court.
Right. But in family court, according to the book, that is exactly what happens. It is the only contract in Western law where the party that breaks the contract is explicitly rewarded for doing so.
And it gets so much darker when you look at the child custody aspect. The book details the extortion of fatherhood. This is where it stops being about just money and starts being about human souls.
Yeah, this is where the gynocracy concept really shows its teeth. Riker argues that the legal system turns love into a liability. It treats fathers not as parents, but as revenue streams. There was one case study in the book that, honestly, I had to put the reader down for a second. The story of Jason Wu.
Oh yeah, I flagged that page. That was absolutely terrifying.
Yeah.
Walk the listener through Jason's story because this is the stuff nightmares are made of.
So Jason Wu is a software engineer. Good job, stable guy, plays by the rules. He goes through a divorce. He ends up paying $1.1 million in child support over the years.
Which is an insane amount of money to begin with.
It is. But here's the twist. It turned out the child's age had been falsified on the original documents.
Falsified how? Like a typo at the hospital.
No deliberate manipulation by the mother. The child was actually an adult for a significant portion of the time he was paying. The birth date was manipulated to extend the payout period. So Jason found out. He got the proof. He went to court to say, hey, I've been paying child support for a grown adult. This is blatant fraud.
And any rational person would think the court says, oh my God, fraud, here's your money back, and she goes to jail.
You would think. But the court ruled that because of the statute of limitations on contesting the acknowledgement of paternity or the specific details of the birth certificate, it was too late. He had to keep paying. He paid over $1 million.
That is just, I can't even process that.
And Riker points out this devastating detail. While Jason was draining his savings, his ex was buying a Tesla and a timeshare in Cancun. And Jason Wu didn't get one single weekend with the child.
That sounds like something from a dystopian novel, not a family court in Denver. It effectively says, truth doesn't matter, procedure matters, and revenue matters above all else.
Riker argues that family court operates with a lack of transparency that simply wouldn't be allowed in criminal law or corporate law. It's a closed loop. He quotes a judge from Broward County. This was an off-the-record admission, obviously, captured in a private conversation. The judge told a father in a hallway, "You'll see your kids when your payments are current."
You'll see your kids when your payments are current. That's explicitly transactional. That's literally holding a hostage.
It is. In the eyes of the system Riker describes, visitation isn't a fundamental human right of a parent. It's a product. You buy it. If you stop paying, the product is withheld. Children are leverage. The argument here is that the system is designed to transfer wealth from men to women, and the emotional connection between a father and his children is just the hostage used to ensure the transaction goes through.
It effectively criminalizes the state of being a father if you run out of money.
Exactly. There's a term Riker uses, Title 40VD. This is the federal program that incentivizes states to collect child support. The federal government actually pays states a bonus based on how much support they collect. So the state has a financial incentive to maximize payments from fathers, regardless of fairness or shared custody arrangements. The judge isn't just a neutral arbiter. The judge is a revenue collector for the county.
That is a massive conflict of interest. It means the state is basically betting against the father from day one.
Riker calls it the industry of broken homes. And if the end game is this marriage plantation, Riker argues you don't just arrive there by accident, you are groomed for it. And that grooming starts way earlier. It starts in school. Which brings us to Section 2, the education war schools that hate boys.
This is something a lot of parents of boys are starting to notice instinctively. My friends with sons tell me this all the time. Riker calls it the pipeline problem.
The data shows that the education system has become a filtering mechanism that removes men or breaks them before they even hit the workforce. We know the college stats. Women now earn 58% of bachelor's degrees, and that number is climbing. But Riker asks why. Is it because boys suddenly became stupid in the last 30 years?
No, obviously not.
He argues that schools have become feminized environments that punish natural male behavior.
We see this with the ADHD diagnoses, right?
It's a massive disparity. Boys are diagnosed with ADHD at 5 times the rate of girls. Riker compares the behaviors. When a girl in a classroom is talkative, social, maybe passing notes or whispering, it's often labeled as enthusiasm or social engagement, seen as a positive trait. She's a communicator.
Right, she's spirited.
Exactly. But when a boy does the exact same thing, fidgets, can't sit still, wants to move, taps his pencil, it's a disorder, it's a pathology. Riker argues that boys are evolutionarily designed to be active, to learn through doing, through competition, through testing boundaries. If you force a boy to sit still in a chair for 7 hours a day and listen to a lecture, you are fighting his nature. And when he resists, you drug him.
There was that anecdote about the high school boy in Oregon. I think this really illustrates the double standard in discipline that the book is talking about.
Yes, this story really boils the blood. This boy was expelled for physical aggression. Now, what did he do? Was he beating someone up? Was he bringing a weapon to school? No. He was wrestling with his friends on the grass during lunch. No one was hurt. No one was angry. It was roughhousing, physical play. But the school has a zero tolerance policy for that kind of toxic male energy.
Meanwhile, what were the girls doing, according to the book?
The girls were engaging in what psychologists call relational aggression. Gossip, destroying social standing, isolating peers, cyberbullying on Instagram, psychological warfare, essentially. But because it wasn't physical, because it didn't look like male violence, there were no consequences.
So the boy gets expelled for playing, and the girls literally destroy a peer's reputation, and nothing happens.
It teaches boys from a very young age that their natural way of interacting, which is often physical and hierarchical, is inherently wrong or bad. Riker says we are raising a generation of boys who are afraid of their own bodies.
And if they survive K through 12, they get to university, where Riker discusses the weaponization of Title IX. Now, most people listening probably just think Title IX is about sports funding, right? Like making sure the girls' soccer team gets new jerseys.
That was the original intent back in 1972.
Uh-huh.
But Riker argues it has morphed into a system of surveillance and the total removal of due process. It's now used to police everyday interactions and speech. He cites a professor who was investigated simply for assigning Aristotle,
Why?
deemed toxic. The argument was that Aristotle held views on women that were antiquated, which of course he did. He lived in ancient Greece, so exposing students to him was a form of violence. Another professor was actually reprimanded for using the word mankind instead of humankind in a lecture on history.
It sounds petty, but Riker argues this has a massive chilling effect.
It's not just petty, it's career-ending. But the real danger, according to the book, is the tribunal system for accusations. This is where we see the massive drop in male enrollment in graduate programs, law, and medicine specifically.
These are fields that used to be predominantly male-dominated.
Enrollment of men in law and medicine is down 40% in schools with weak due process protections. Why? Riker explains the calculation. Imagine you are a rational young man. You are looking at investing $200,000 in 4 years of your life into a medical degree. But you know that under current Title IX rules, one anonymous accusation, even without proof, even if it's just a feeling of discomfort from a peer, can trigger a hearing where you don't have the right to a lawyer, you don't have the right to cross-examine your accuser, and the standard of proof is incredibly low.
The risk is just too high. The degree can be seized at any moment.
So they are opting out, they are leaving the building. Riker calls it the Great Male Capital Strike.
Which leads us directly to the workplace. If you survive the education system, you enter the workforce. But Riker calls this next part Section 3, the war on work and the death of the breadwinner.
This is where Riker really challenges the mainstream narrative about privilege. We constantly hear about the glass ceiling for women, the invisible barrier keeping them from the corner office. Riker counters this with the concept of the glass cellar.
The glass cellar, that's a vivid image. What's down there?
The invisible, dangerous, dirty jobs that actually keep civilization running, jobs that are almost exclusively done by men. We're talking about high voltage line repair, deep sea welding, logging, roofing, sewage maintenance. Riker drops a stat that is almost never discussed on the nightly news. 93% of workplace fatalities are men.
93%. So while we're talking about getting more women on the board of Fortune 500 companies, men are the ones falling off cell towers and getting crushed in industrial accidents.
Right. Riker argues that society wants equality only in the air-conditioned, safe, high-status jobs. No one is picketing for 50% female representation in coal mines. No one is demanding equal representation in the bricklaying union.
And yet, these men in the glass cellar are treated with total disdain. Riker tells the story of John Peterson, a steelworker in Ohio.
This anecdote perfectly encapsulates the culture clash. John is a guy who has worked with molten metal, built infrastructure, done the hard, dangerous work for 20 years. His factory closes down. He applies for a job in maintenance at a tech campus, essentially sweeping floors and fixing lights. He was told he needed emotional intelligence training just to get the interview.
To sweep floors.
Because the corporate culture has shifted so radically, it's no longer about competence or grit. It's about conformity to a specific communication style, a feminine communication style. HR departments, which Riker notes are overwhelmingly female, prioritize empathy and collaboration and verbal processing over results and stoicism.
So John, who can literally build a skyscraper with his bare hands, is unqualified because he doesn't know how to use I feel statements.
It's a shift from meritocracy to diversity. Riker argues it's a shift from hiring based on skill to hiring based on identity quotas and personality compliance. And he points out the economic absurdity of the college or bust myth that feeds this entire system. He uses data from Georgetown showing that a male trade certification holder, or someone who becomes an electrician or a plumber, often out-earns a male sociology grad by about $4,200 a year on average.
I love the irony he points out there. The electrician is wiring the house of the sociology major who can't even get a job.
But the sociology major has all the debt. Riker calls college a debt trap for men. And this leads to the economic reality men face regarding family. Riker presents a really stark choice in the book. He calls it the wife or the yacht.
Okay, that sounds like a joke or some internet meme, but he's actually serious.
He's dead serious. He breaks down the lifetime value numbers. A man who marries and has children in this system is, in Riker's view, stressed, taxed, and replaced. He's the beast of burden. He bears the financial weight, the legal risk, and the emotional labor of a system that actively calls him toxic.
But the man who opts out.
Riker calculates that the man who avoids marriage and children can save between $200,000 and $500,000 over a lifetime. He lives unburdened, he can travel, he can invest, he can retire early.
So the system is fundamentally designed to extract resources from the family man, but the man who steps outside of that can actually reclaim his life.
That is the core argument. It's a cynical economic calculation, sure, but Riker insists the numbers don't lie.
But to keep men in the system, to keep them working and paying and marrying despite all these massive risks, you need a powerful propaganda machine. You need to convince them that this is what they should do and that their natural instincts are wrong. And that is where the media comes in. Section 4. The media machine and the myth of toxic masculinity.
This is the stuff we see every single time we turn on the TV. The cultural programming. Riker compares the old archetypes with the new ones to show how the hero has been completely deconstructed.
He uses the Captain Kirk comparison.
It's a perfect example. He compares Captain Kirk from the original 1966 Star Trek with Captain Una Chin Riley from the recent series Strange New Worlds. Think about the original Kirk. He was decisive, he was bold, he was a leader, he took risks, he was physically capable, he sometimes broke the rules to save his crew.
He was the ultimate archetype of competent masculinity.
Exactly.
Huh.
Now look at the modern captain. Hesitant, reliant on emotional appeals, constantly second-guessing decisions. Riker argues that modern scripts are written to show men as needing consensus and validation rather than command. It's the deliberate removal of masculine competence.
And it's not just sci-fi. He talks about the woke Disney propaganda. There's a story about a father watching the Lion King remake with his son.
Oh yeah, this one resonated with a lot of his readers. The father noted that in the remake, the dynamic of the pride completely changed. In the original, Mufasa is the king, the protector, the ultimate authority. In the remake, Riker describes Simba's mom running the pride like a corporate DEI officer. She's lecturing, she's managing. The male agency is entirely stripped away.
It's subtle, but it adds up over time. And then you have the sitcom tropes, like The Big Bang Theory.
Look at that show. You have geniuses, literal rocket scientists, and theoretical physicists, but socially. They are children. They are pathetic. They constantly need the women, who are often waitresses or in less intellectual fields, to fix them, to teach them how to be human, to mother them.
Or Modern Family. Phil Dunphy.
The classic bumbling dad. He's well-meaning, he's nice, but he's basically an idiot. He constantly needs to be saved by the competent, exasperated wife. Riker argues this isn't just lazy writing, it's psychological warfare. It frames men as effectively oversized children who need female supervision just to function in society.
And then there's the language itself, the term toxic masculinity.
This is a key piece of the gynocracy's defense mechanism. If you want to control a group, you control the language you use to describe them. Riker points to search trends. Searches for toxic masculinity spiked 700% between 2015 and 2020.
Now, did men suddenly become 700% more toxic in those 5 years?
Actually, the data says the exact opposite. Actual male violence assaults, murders declined in that period. But the narrative exploded. Riker discusses how the American Psychological Association fed into this. In 2019, they released guidelines stating that traditional masculinity ideology have been shown to limit male psychological development.
What traits did they actually list as harmful?
They explicitly listed stoicism, competitiveness, dominance, and the desire to protect as pathological.
Wait, so being a protector is now a sickness. Being competitive, the very thing that drives innovation and progress, is a sickness.
According to the APA, yes. It creates what Riker calls the double bind. If you are strong, stoic, and competitive, you are toxic, and the system hates you. If you are soft, vulnerable, and yielding, you are despised by the dating market and ignored by society. You literally cannot win.
And that feeling of you cannot win is what drives the next section. Riker argues that this isn't just politics, it's religion. Section 5, the religion of feminism and the hijack of psychology.
This is a really fascinating sociological analysis. He argues that feminism functions exactly like a fundamentalist religion. It has original sin, being born male. You are born guilty of the patriarchy.
It has penance.
Checking your privilege, apologizing for your existence, giving up your seat, your job, your voice.
And it has heresy.
Questioning the wage gap, suggesting that men have problems too. If you commit heresy, you get excommunicated, you get canceled, you lose your job.
He mentions the United Church of Christ ordaining a gender-fluid deity.
It shows how deep this ideology has penetrated. Even traditional religious spaces are being rewritten. But the most damaging part, according to Riker, is the IRS bias. This is where the religion actually gets state power.
This was about the nonprofit status, right?
Yes. There were men's mental health groups specifically designed to stop men from committing suicide, which we know is a massive epidemic. They were denied nonprofit status because they were flagged for promoting male supremacy.
Yeah.
Why? Because they focused exclusively on men.
Meanwhile, feminist groups that openly advocate for the dismantling of the nuclear family.
Millions in grants, tax-exempt status, no questions asked.
That is infuriating. You have men dying of despair, and the government says, sorry, helping you is hate speech.
It's why Riker attacks modern therapy so aggressively. He says modern therapy fails men because it demands they act like women. It demands tears, opening up, vulnerability.
Tell me your feelings.
But when men do, they often feel worse. Men process through action, through solution finding. Riker tells the story of James, an engineer. James was in therapy for depression. He was told he was emotionally stunted because he wouldn't cry in the sessions. He felt broken. He thought something was fundamentally wrong with his brain.
What did James end up doing?
He quit therapy entirely. He started lifting weights. He started reading Stoicism, Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus. He took responsibility for his life instead of wallowing in it.
And what happened?
He found instant clarity. His depression lifted. Riker's concept is simple. Modern therapy teaches men to whine. Stoicism teaches them to win. It's about agency versus victimhood.
Which brings us to the reaction. Men aren't just taking this lying down anymore. We are seeing a massive pushback across the board. Section 6. The Rebellion, MGTOW, Tech, and the Brotherhood.
This is where the book shifts from an autopsy to a war manual. He talks extensively about MGTOW men going their own way.
Now, the media usually paints these guys as incels, right?
They.
Just angry guys in basements who can't get girls.
Riker rejects that entirely. He defines MGTOW not as incels, but as winners. These are often successful men, smart men, who have looked at the stats, the divorce rates, the marriage plantation, the glass cellar, and said, I'm opting out, the game is rigged, so I'm just not playing.
And the numbers are growing incredibly fast.
17% of American men aged 25 to 44 now identify with this movement or similar sentiments. That's up from 6% in 2015. That is a massive demographic shift. We are talking about millions of men entirely removing themselves from the dating and marriage market.
He tells a story of Ryan.
Ryan is the archetype of this rebellion. He lost his house and his income in a brutal divorce. The system crushed him. But instead of giving up or getting violent, he started MGTOW Garage. He teaches off-grid living. He has 400,000 subscribers. He lives cheaply, he's free, and he is building his own infrastructure.
And that infrastructure piece is huge. It's not just about living in the woods, it's about technology. The tech rebellion.
Men are building their own platforms to escape censorship. Riker highlights Men First, a decentralized social platform that is raising crypto funding.
Because if you stay on the main platforms, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, you get banned if you speak too loudly about these issues.
Exactly. We saw it with Andrew Tate and Jordan Peterson. Riker discusses their deplatforming not as a defeat, but as a badge of honor. When they were kicked off, their financial success actually increased.
Right.
Pete's War Room, Peterson's membership, they monetized the rebellion. They proved you don't need the corporate sponsors to reach an audience.
It's also happening in the coding world, which is fascinating.
Yes, the migration from GitHub to Radical. 18,000 male developers moved to decentralized coding platforms. Why? To avoid toxic masculinity regulations and codes of conduct that were being forced upon them in open source communities. They just want to code. They don't want to sit through DEI struggle sessions or be told their variable names are offensive.
And then there's the physical brotherhood, the No More Silent Majority rally in Dallas.
June 15th, 2024. 12,000 men standing in total silence. It wasn't a protest with shouting. It wasn't a riot. It was a show of force. Riker emphasizes the importance of offline spaces, gyms, grilling, workshops, places where feminist oversight simply cannot reach.
There was that viral image he described the man grilling his Nike Air Jordans.
The symbolic rejection of funding feminism. Nike, of course, being a brand that has leaned heavily into the woke narrative, it's about voting with your wallet and refusing to support companies that hate you.
Which leads us to the final section, Section 7, the future sovereignty over slavery.
Riker presents a binary choice here. It's really the culmination of the entire book. The choice is sovereignty or slavery.
And the key realization, according to the book, is that the cavalry isn't coming.
He argues that the system isn't broken. It's working exactly as designed. It is designed to extract. So no one is coming to save you.
That is the hardest pill to swallow. We are trained from birth to wait for the hero.
But you have to be the hero. You have to save yourself. He contrasts the American victim mindset with the Bushido Code.
The Japanese salaryman.
Duty, honor, silence and suffering, gammon endurance. Riker argues that the American man has been medicated into a stupor, whereas the path forward is a return to that ancient code of responsibility. Not for the benefit of women or society, but for his own self-respect.
And financially, this is already having an impact.
Look at Disney stock. Riker claims it plummeted specifically because dads stopped taking their sons to movies. Men are spending 41% less on branded lifestyle junk. They are opting out of the consumer economy that hates them.
So what does this all mean for the listener? Riker says, feminism didn't liberate women, it weaponized them. And men became the fuel.
That's the core takeaway. The rebellion isn't about hate. Riker is very clear on this. It's about indifference. It's about total indifference to a system that hates you. It's about turning your back on the gynocracy and building something else. A parallel economy, a parallel culture.
This book, Feminist Damnation, is essentially a boot on the throat of the feminist narrative. It is heavy, it is controversial, and it is absolutely packed with data that you are just not going to see on the nightly news.
If you are ready to wake up, if you're ready to see the code of the Matrix, you need to go buy this book right now. Check Amazon Kindle, check Google Play Books, get Feminist Damnation by Conrad Riker.
And make sure you subscribe to @Conrad Riker @Substack for the ongoing war effort. And of course, like and subscribe to The Deep Dive. We are going to keep having these unauthorized conversations no matter who gets mad.
Absolutely. The truth has to get out there.
We'll leave you with Riker's final thought for the listener, something to carry with you as you navigate all of this. Stay sharp, stay free, stay dangerous.